But let's add electricity to that conversation when we flip that to look at some of the issues, some news this week. EcoBank researchers, we said on Wednesday, issued a report about the state of Nigeria's power sector and says that Nigeria's power sector needs a coherent turnaround plan urgently. That was the heading of that report on Wednesday. The research report went on to say there's a need to work very quickly on the existing and new capacity from the power companies. There's a need for a flexible tariff system that makes everybody happy. That's a very volatile one there. Then the sector, of course, needs a financial framework. That's some of the issues that were raised, however, in that report. Nigeria, meantime, seeking a fresh money, about $2.5 billion from the World Bank to ramp up electricity supply, making it more sustainable. One news overnight was that investors are now offering $5.6 billion for the federal government's 10 NIPP power plants, and that will be President Buhari's first power sector privatization program in 2 years if it goes through. So that's one big news there you need to focus on. Meantime, we started the week with some conversations around whether discos have exclusivity over their coverage areas. The power minister has spoken. Babatunde Fashola says there is no coverage area exclusivity for any power distribution company. We call them discos in this jurisdiction. Robert Omotunde is the head of research at Afrinvest, and we're having some electrifying conversation for about 10 minutes. Yes, good morning. It's good to be here.
Morning.
Let's leave talks aside and put some power into this. Yeah. That report from EcoBank Research, and you also publish research regularly on a daily basis about the coherent turnaround plan, says we need it very urgently. Do you agree with that heading?
Well, maybe not absolutely with the heading, because I know that the government has been doing quite a lot in terms of seeing the turnaround in that sector. Of course, there is a need to sort of declare a state of emergency on the power sector. You know, we have to turn it around. The business model needs to be, reevaluated, if I may say. And it cuts across the value chain, and it's good enough that the government, in 2013, privatized the sector, by involving the private sector, in the value chain from the generation to the distribution, and we've even seen some other moves that have been done in terms of bringing in Embed, which is the bulk trader, that signs an agreement with all the generation companies and say, yes, I'm going to take whatever you're producing and I'll guarantee that you get paid, more like what we called a guaranteed payment scheme, which allows that when generation companies produce, there is, somebody who, like a power purchase agreement, that's what we call it, PPA, and that sort of thing is one of the issues that has really come to the fore, in terms of all the challenges that are facing the sector. But if we dissect it, and we look at what the current Minister for Power has been doing in terms of ensuring that from the collection, which is, like the bulk. So we talk about the discos, for example, who are more or less doing the dirty job, to do the collection for the value chain. And you look at the sort of problems or the challenges that we have been facing in that particular area, then we begin to, ask ourselves a question: are we moving forward? And if I give you some statistics, from there's something we call aggregate technical, commercial, and collection losses. And what we've seen recently, if you look at that statistic, on the average, we have 49%, of ATC&C losses. And if you look at that figure and you compare to what the global benchmark is, average, there are some that are doing as low as 5%, and I mean, if you look at average across the major developed countries, is below 10%, But again, for flexibility, Mito 2 factored in some of these losses, maybe by way of technical transmission of power, or the losses associated with commercial transmission, and of course the distribution angle, which has to do majorly with collection, and factored in some of this pricing into the tariff that we pay. But again, I was looking at the figure for January, from NBET. So of all the power that was pushed to the discos, they paid on the average about 31.57%, of all the power that was pushed to them. No company can survive that. So you produce at certain level, say you produce 100 billion, and you get revenue for 30 billion, and all others are in receivables, and the gap keeps piling up over and over and over, and then it's constituting what we call legacy debt. So companies are carrying, numbers that they don't have cash backed. It's going to be very difficult for me to relate to this, even though I'm aware of it. But I'm sure a number of Nigerians, well, maybe not many of the folks on the street, were surprised 3 days ago to hear that Benin Republic and Niger Republic, one to the west and the other to the north, paid NBET, the same NBET, by another name, Nigerian government, about $160 million for electricity that Nigeria supplied to these countries, whereas we say we don't have electricity in Nigeria. So a few of these conversations in the newsroom, a bit of being emotional, as it were. And I really understand with folks, why should we sell electricity to Benin Republic, to Niger and other countries, and we don't have it at home? Then again, you see, it speaks to the problem that we need to start seeing electricity generation and even consumption as a business. So if I am a business person, for instance, I just gave you an average statistic of, of the ATC and sale losses. In that 49%, about 35% is due to collection losses, meaning you succeeded in transmitting from the generation company to the distribution company, but the discos are not able to, collect because
from consumers
because of all of the inefficiencies that is built into that. We talk about metering as a problem. If you are a prepaid meter user, the likelihood is that you pay before you consume. But for the postpaid users, again, there's a complaint, the laxity on the part of the discos. We have our distribution infrastructure going obsolete. They are not doing so much of investment, that is needed to improve collection. So those are the issues, and that is why you will see NBET, of course, I imagine that we have some of our transmission infrastructure, exported into neighboring countries like Niger or Benin Republic. I mean, so why not if you can?
So all the stories that we're not producing enough electricity, there's a problem. Some folks outside Nigeria having stable electricity, while I don't have. So I'm going to take it personal now. Yes, because I don't have, and if that doesn't look like charity, that starts again, from home.
Again, you see, dissecting the power problem in Nigeria, it's complex, no doubt. Of course.
Was that why you said we should have an emergency declared?
Seriously, because if you look at the layout, even for instance, wherever you stay in Lagos, you are either under Ikeja or Eco Disco. For instance, you do not have the liberty to say, I stay in say Bagada, and I want to be serviced by Eco Disco, for example, because the distribution infrastructure will not also allow that.
Which was a legacy problem, isn't it?
Yes.
That was NEPA or PHCN problem.
Well, which is why
not the new discos.
Yes, which is why we may now begin to talk about the need to decentralize, even transmission, because, for instance, of all the generation companies you have, when you produce, you still have to lay through the national grid, which is centralized there in Oshogbo. So whether I'm producing from Kanji or I'm producing from, most of those plants in the northern part, you still have to pass it through all the way from the north to Oshogbo before it's now distributed
back to
the districts. We now get it to the consumers. So it's a lot of
messy.
Issue. Yeah, it's messy, which is why people are talking about captive power. In a situation where you can identify some willing buyers who are willing to pay, because this thing costs money. And for all these losses we're talking about, it means that the generation company, who continues to produce, are falling short of their obligations to the gas suppliers because it's a generator that produces power.
The word on the street was that the folks in Nigeria and Benin Republic pays more for electricity than we do, but they get it stable. But Nigerians feel that, well, power is a government service, we should get it cheap.
And that is why there won't be power. So if we must get power, we must be willing to pay, right? Some of the issues now, we talk about the tariff system, and all of the inefficiencies involved, which is why some people are saying, are we really paying for services? Are we paying for losses? Because I just explained to you that on the average, you see about 50% or 49%, of all the losses, associated with the pricing of electricity, tariffs. So if we are going to get power in this country as an individual, no sentiment, we are in this together because I'm here in Nigeria, but the truth is that we must be willing to pay, and then the government must be willing to do the needful, which is
quick one. That's the next one. Well, I don't want to conclude this conversation without touching the 10 NIPP privatization. Do you think this will help in any way? Do you think we should move on very quickly with the NIPP? Would it be one part of the solution?
Well, I think it's part of the solution because we've seen that it's more efficient when the private sectors are allowed to run most of these ventures. Yes, but I just hope that we are not going to repeat the mistake we made in 2013, when some of these assets were sold in dollars. Of course, we can sell in dollars and building the exchange rate, equivalence, but at the end of the day, let it be not that we're dollarizing the system so that it doesn't create another banking non-performing loans.
That's a very subtle hint, so that we don't create it again. Then the investors go in and get the money. Then we create another bubble on top of another one. We haven't really resolved the one we chewed in November 2013. We should be careful how we bite and how much we bite this time around. Maybe this is something that Fashola, the NRC, and the rest of them will be looking at, and of course, perhaps with some advice from folks like your good self. Thank you very much. Do have a great week.
Thank you.
And you like the market this week?
Well, yes.
Yes, that's a yes. Okay, have a great weekend.